I'm a Canadian who came over to Germany in 1978. I think that was supposed to be for 2 years. Then that got extended for another 3 years. And then I was told to leave instead of going home, I went to the Netherlands and worked for 2 years at the European Space Agency. And those 2 years are up. The Max Planck Institute in Germany was under new management, and the people who had originally hired me there, it was a research fellowship was what I had. They called me up and said, "Well, I hear you're going back to Canada now. Would you be interested in coming back to us here in Germany?" And I said, "Huh, you must be kidding. Are you going to give me a permanent job?" Yeah. Also, I just gone through a divorce, and I had a German girlfriend, and who was not prepared to come with me to Canada. So I said, the combination of the two is very attractive. So I went back to Germany and worked there ever since. And for it's called the Max Planck Institute, and it does space research. There are many Max Planck Institutes, but this particular one was in a very small town in northern Germany, very near the border to East Germany, for good reasons, because there was radio silence around there. There wasn't so much interviews, and they were doing stratospheric radar research, listening to the radio waves made by the upper atmospheres, and so they didn't want all this communication stuff interfering with them. And okay, we experienced the unification, the hordes of the East Germans coming over to invade us on November 10th, 1989. We made a lot of good friends at that point. And in the meantime, when it was 2014, the Institute moved from the small town into a larger town of Göttingen, which is actually where I was living. It's a university town of about 130,000, so it's comparable to Oxford. And it's also changed its name. It's now called the Max Planck Institute for Solar System Research. And we don't do much with listening into the noises from the stratosphere. We are listening to noises coming from Mars and from Jupiter and from Saturn. And so on. And I'm actually the head of one experiment on a ESA mission, which involves 4 spacecraft circling the Earth, and the Earth is still part of the solar system. But once this mission is over, then they're not going to do anything more with the Earth. And I was told this, okay, you can stay around and finish off this one mission, and then that should last you until you retire. Well, I retired 9 years ago, and the mission is still going on and on and on and on. Although it is programmed, and this is a definite program. This is a hard number. The satellites will come down in 2026. And look, I've stayed on after my retirement. I'm only working part-time, but I have a number of people working for me, and they get their money not directly from the Institute, but we all get paid for from research grants. So if I go, they go. That seems. Anyway, as a result, we do a lot of publications. We have to write a lot of papers. And that's where I got into latex. The major journal that we wrote for is called the Journal of Geophysical Research. It's an American publication put out by the American Geophysical Union. And they accept things in Word and whatever. I mean, I'm talking now about the 80s. Latex was also then a possibility, and some people had written some star files that were called star files at the time, the old latex, for this journal to adhere to their requirements. And also, what was missing was bibliography style. That's when I started to look at this and say, okay, we need a bibliography style for this JGR thing. And not only that, we need something which will handle author year citations, because that's what they want. They don't want numerical citations. This is all that standard LaTeX was offering, and standard BibTeX. But there were a few special things, like APA-like was a style with a package to go along with it. There was Harvard, which could also handle these things. There was no, there were a couple of these things around, and you started working out a way to make changes to a bibliography style. This was very complicated. So natbib is a separate thing. I wrote natbib to handle author year styles, and then I decided that it needed to be, I could generalize it. I could make it do both. I could make it handle the author year citations and also numerical citations. And then I got requests. Well, Nature likes to use superscripted numbers for the citations, and on and on it went. But you needed to have the bibliography styles to go along with it. And that's when I came up with this idea of what I ended up calling custom bib, a program which will help you generate a bibliography style from a long list of options. And when I started to write it, I was hardwiring all these options into that program, and I realized this is going to be a monster if you ever want to make a change. So I made it a more general thing. I decided to put all the options and also the descriptions of the options and the menus. They were built into a master template file, MST, no, MB, sorry. That's another term from my space physics stuff. Master bibliographies, MBS file. And I had a couple of these things around, but the really important one was the big monster master, mother of them all, which I called Merlin because it could do all sorts of magical things. And over the years, I got a lot of requests. Can't you add this to it? Can't you do this? I would need to. I have a journal that wants to do. They want to write the everything backwards. You get strange requests, and I thought, okay, this is. I don't see the point of it, but I'll put it in. And natbib had to be modified accordingly to go along with these things. And then came Arthur Ogawa, and said they wanted to make use of custom bib and natbib for the physical review. Oh, how nice! And however, so he took the Merlin thing that I had and put all sorts of things into it just to fix it up, to make it a lot more suitable for what he wanted to do, which clashed with a lot of things that were already in it. So I had to go and fix it up. And in the end, we got something together that was super, was even better than before. And then he did the same sort of thing to natbib. So yeah, I get both natbib and custom bib and the Merlin have credit to Arthur for his contributions to that. But I see, in preparing for this talk, I took a look at my natbib style, package. Sorry, it's package. What it's called, and look to see when did I start this thing. And the earliest date that's in is 1993. But I know that I was working on it before I went to officially document it and put it onto CTAN. And I must have got it into CTAN just in time for Frank Mittelbach to notice it and make and recommend it in the LaTeX Companion. I think that sort of gave it official status. Apart from the fact that it's a very good very good job, and it does meets all sorts of requirements. Oh, yeah, okay. But the last change I made, and last entry I put to CTAN was about 10 years ago, or more than that. And although I have had some requests since then, I have not. Yeah, Phil, you said you haven't got to look into the code in natbib. Well, it is tricky. It is very, very tricky, and I'm rusty now myself. So it will take me a lot of time to try to figure out these things. But there was a request that I got for 2015, and it was a very simple thing. Somebody had said they'd spent hours working on this, going through the natbib code, and they finally figured out what it was that was needed, and here it is. And this, can't you put it in and send it up to CTAN? So 2 years ago, I got down to look at this thing and said, oh yeah, it's a very simple thing. In fact, it's something that was in it originally and I took out at one point. I don't know why. Yeah, okay, that was 2 years ago during a summer break, and I thought I had some time to work on this thing, and then the summer came to an end. I didn't get. Oh, I know, I fixed that up very quickly, but there were a lot of other things going, a lot of other requests I got in the meantime. I thought, really, to justify a new version, you have to do more than just change one line of code. But then those other lines of code never did to realize. So I'm sorry, it's in a way natbib is frozen for a long time. Getting onto the bibliography aspects, I would like to say something about this. Jonathan, you say you're not so up on bibtext, so you don't know, you're not using a lot. So Nelson, you certainly are. You understand this. One of the things that I found so frustrating was the variety of requests that publishers wanted, or they every little fiddly thing they want to comma. No, I want a semicolon. Okay, the authors should be initialized, or the full names come out, or you got to put the publisher names first before the date, or something like this. All this fiddly little stuff is just totally irrelevant to getting the message across. And why can't we have a halfway decent standard on this over the whole publishing world? And apart from that, the publishers seem to think that the author has control over all this, that it's simply a matter of telling the author, okay, we want you to put the bibliography in this form. So you go through your text for every one of your citations, and you go through it and you type them all up and you put it into this form. That's not the way people work. It's done by machines these days. You have a database, you have a bibtext database, and bibtext is probably it could be worked on, it could be done better, I suppose, but it is good. It contains all the information you need for making a bibliography. Then you need a program which will extract this information and format it the way it needs to be, and that's where the bibliography styles come in. So the publisher should really say, we should tell the publisher, okay, you want it this way, you make up a bibliography style file or have somebody do it for you, and whatever that program does, that is by definition your style. Yeah. Somehow they don't get that message. So still think everybody does everything by typewriter. Okay, maybe a computer keyboard, that they type everything in themselves. I don't know how people do this in Word and make up a bibliography. I don't know if Word has any kind of a bibliography generation scheme.
Yeah, both EndNote and Papyrus, both of which sort of grew out of the Unix bib refer style of citation, are heavily used in that environment. The commercial products that people license and use them. I can give an example from mathematics. 2 years ago, the World Congress of Mathematicians was held in Rio de Janeiro following the TUG meeting there. And the organizers of the proceedings of that large conference, which brings about 8,000 mathematicians to one giant meeting, decided that they would collect the bibliographic data from all of the submitted papers and put it into a common database, and then use DOIs as much as possible to cross-check information, and produced essentially a master bibliography with lots and lots of repairs. Because one thing that editors certainly notice of authors is they're pretty careless when it comes to referencing the literature. They get the years wrong, the journal wrong, the names wrong. They change the author name order. The titles are screwed up. I mean, anything that they can do wrong, they do. So having a unique identifier has really been helpful. And I think that may indicate the way things will happen in the future. My friend Ross Moore at Macquarie University in Sydney has been involved in similar large meetings of physicists and mathematicians, and Volker Shaw in Germany also with large physics meetings. So I think we may see more of this make it into future meetings, but I fully agree. It's totally insane to have every publication wanting its own style. Yesterday, as the coordinator of the LaTeX thesis support at the University of Utah, I had a student from the business school send me his PDF file with some problems. And one of the things the editors in the thesis office, nothing to do with me, had done was insist that every time there was a list of authors, the last two should be separated by an ampersand rather than the word and. This is totally nonsense. But unfortunately, he's forced to do it. And I found a style that might solve his problem. It's a sad state of affairs. And we do have the case that large organizations like the American Math Society and the Association for Computing Machinery, they tend to have one or two key styles. They want, some of them, their journals need an author's date style, and others need a numeric style, and they're pretty happy. The physics literature, of course, is much larger, and there's probably a broader range of styles used there. And then you have the humanities and in law in particular, where there's rather different citation practices. And it really is ripe for an ISO standard of two kinds of citations, a numeric one and an author date one. And that's really all we need. But you're absolutely right. It should be coming from databases, and people shouldn't have to fiddle this. This is just nonsense.